Take it away, Ted.
All right. Welcome. Thanks for coming. How's the volume? Pat?
We have some people online too, so we just gotta check that as well. We're good?
So this we thought would be an opportunity to let you all know from the committee chairs' perspectives, what's been happening in the past N months and what we expect to do going forward. So each of them will have about 5 minutes to, let's see, can I, each,
Here.
what is that?
You want me to do it?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Do you want to introduce yourself, Ted?
Yeah. Yeah, my name is Ted Billard. I'm co-chair of the City Engagement Committee. And Kathy is also chair of NEST and chairs the City Engagement team as well. I'll let the other committee chairs introduce them when it's their turn, but we're going to give each of the chairs about 5 minutes to explain in their own words, assisted by PowerPoint. But before they step up, we thought it'd be a good idea to let you know what the city thinks of our progress towards the Sustainability 2036. And at the end of the committees, we'll provide you with some of the data that we pulled from the city's Naperville's environmental sustainability dashboard, just to sort of give you 3 looks at what progress looks like. So Ben Mulesness provided the city's perspective in a meeting that Kathy and I attended on March 14th. If you're interested in where to find this, the environmental sustainability dashboard, that's the link on the bottom. So when we're talking about building development, they were proud to talk about pursuing grants. There's a Department of Energy Efficiency, the Energy Efficiency Conservation Block Grant that's currently being drafted. It's due for completion. The application's due at the end of the month. Almost 192,000 would be allocated for the city of Naperville to provide energy audits, building upgrades for city facilities, and another 20,000 budgeted for climate risk and vulnerability assessment.
Can I just jump in with a comment on that? So there's a lot of federal money out there now for sustainability, for climate, addressing the climate crisis. And some of that money is contingent on having that last one there, the risk and vulnerability assessment done. So it's really important that they've set aside money for that, because it opens us up to getting additional funding to address the, our climate impact and the impact that the climate will have on us.
More perspective, funding has been allocated for consultant to create an updated bicycle and pedestrian plan, and assessing community walkability and bikeability. But the project, the start date has been delayed due to a reorganization within Naperville's TED organization. And an interesting question came up. Could the International Energy and Conservation Codes be built into city building codes? And I'm sure Barbara will have more to say on that. Someone raised the question to Ben in a city stakeholder meeting.
Yeah, there's good. Barbara's gonna talk a little bit more about that. We just had another meeting today with them.
So even fresh,
Yes, very
fresh
fresh
source.
news.
Stakeholder meeting for commercial EV requirements. Bruce was in attendance, participated in that meeting towards the end of March. So I'd like to introduce Barbara Benson, Chair of the Building and Development Committee.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Barbara. In this first slide, you can see, because most of our emissions come from buildings.
Can you talk a little louder? Sorry.
Oh, yeah.
For the back people in the back.
As you can see from this slide, most of our emissions come from buildings, right? So because of that, building and development has focused mostly on ways to reduce those emissions through building codes and other means, working on residential and commercial structures, existing and new development, right? Did I press that over? Okay. So in this slide, you can see these are our objectives of our committee. We work on promoting the adoption of updated building codes. We work on ways to increase building energy efficiency and working on future-proofing our buildings by promoting electrification initiatives. Okay, because the future is going to be electric. Okay, so this year we really started to focus on these upcoming Illinois stretch codes. And if people may not be familiar with that term currently, but hopefully as time goes on, everyone will get educated and be on the same page. The stretch code that is being proposed will help us incrementally achieve net zero by 2045. Okay, and every year it requires development to become more energy efficient. And NEST is recommending that the city adopt these when they become available. They are not available yet. The state has to approve this, but we are hoping that by the fall, that may happen, optimistically. Okay, so our committee held since January a few meetings on educating ourselves, and it's certainly open to the community to learn about these stretch codes. What does it mean? What's included? And so we started this educational process. We've also set for ourselves goals of working with the city, collaborating with city staff, and hoping to educate them as much as we can about the importance of moving in the direction of the stretch code and electrification. As Kathy mentioned, even just today, we had a meeting with the head of, not the head of TED, but the head of building codes enforcement, Ron Weber, and with Ben and Leanne to talk about where the city is currently on updating their building codes, because they are in the process of adopting the 2024 IECC, the new building code. And to talk, we also spoke about the option of the stretch codes and what that may mean for staff, and offered our services, how we can help them get more information and get training. Trying to sense if they, trying to get a sense on where they stand. If they're inclined to add another layer of code to the books. It's not clear yet, but they certainly were open to talking and collaborating. And just as a note to plug the next community meeting, the meeting in May is going to be on the topic of building codes and stretch codes. And Ron Weber from the city will be one of our speakers to talk about where the city is in the process and what they're doing. So we hope people will join us for that. It should be very informative. Go to the next. Yeah, so another one of our action items for the year is just to continue this education process and collaborative process with different stakeholders, including the city staff, including the community. We're looking to set up some events with contractors and developers to try to educate them on the importance of energy efficiency and electrification. So in conclusion, our committee is constantly looking at and reevaluating how can we up our energy efficiency here in Naperville? How can we get the city to adopt more stringent building codes and more stricter energy codes? We're looking to continually collaborate and work with the community and other stakeholders. And if anyone is interested, we're having our next meeting Wednesday, April 24th at 7 p.m. We generally meet via Zoom and we invite anyone and everyone to join us. Thank you.
Are we gonna do questions at the end?
Yeah, well, I should have said that at the start. We'll save our questions at the end. We're not sure exactly how fast we're gonna get through each of the,
We love questions though,
yeah.
so think of questions.
and it'll be more interactive, I promise. The city's perspective, changing committees, the city's perspective on waste and recycling. The Nest Waste Committee is considering a proposal. I'm sorry, that's the city of Naperville's Waste Committee is considering a proposal for EPS densification equipment for handling polystyrene. There was, I guess, some objection within the city. And so a meeting to discuss space requirements and staff time was to be rescheduled at the time. Ben,
We did meet with them.
okay.
Yep.
So I'd like to introduce the chairperson of the Waste Committee, Beth Schwartz.
Haven't hear you.
Apologize, I have a little sinus infection going on, so hopefully I don't have another coughing fit, but. So the city is calculated in the past the recycling rate, and their target was 40% recycling. Now the city's website posts just how many pounds we recycle, how many pounds we throw away. They're not giving us that percentage number, because it's gone down over time. And they're making the case that it's gone down because recyclables are becoming lighter. We're not using as much paper, which is pretty heavy. And that the hazardous waste disposal facility is catching on, that we've had a 52% increase in material dropped off there since 2015. So all that's kind of feasible. And it makes it really hard to decide, is our recycling rate gone down? And what more could we do? So Waste Committee has several goals, and they're based mainly on the survey that we did before we wrote the sustainability report for the city. So the public really wanted their biggest interest was plastic bags and increasing recycling. So increasing recycling is a big goal for us, and styrofoam is one thing that we've worked on this year. And we have a very enthusiastic member who's also part of the Lions Club and has done a lot of independent research. And we took him with us to meet with the city and the Public Works Department. And he presented, what other communities are doing. There's a grant that's available to buy equipment that's called densification equipment that'll heat the foam without actually melting it, but it'll shrink in size and the air comes out and it reduces its volume by 90%. So it's easier to ship, easier for the users to manage at the other end and actually recycle it. This is equipment that if the city could get this grant, they would have to commit space and we'd have to find resources for, you know, collecting styrofoam. Couple days a week, couple days a month, something. And then somebody would have to run the machine for a few hours. Once you accumulate enough of this densified foam, there are people who will come and pick it up for free. So that is kind of in process for us. It's got some hope. In the meantime, we're trying to organize, there are a couple of senators doing big recycling events over the summer months, and we're hoping to get DART Container to put a trailer at those events and collect styrofoam, and then they will densify it themselves and take that for free. So it's an easy thing. It's a little interim thing we can do because we just missed the cutoff to apply for the grant for the densification equipment. Another thing we had been working on in the past was trying to get the city to pass a construction and demolition debris ordinance, which would say that anytime somebody demolished or built something, you know, they have that big roll-off container out in the driveway and they throw all their garbage in there. That has to go to a sorting facility so that, you know, the bricks can go to be reused, the broken concrete can get crushed and put in road base. The wood can get shredded and it will back on your yard as mulch. And it's really not a very controversial thing. And the biggest thing it does, it's usually being done already. But what it would do for the city is give us the ability to collect the data of how much is being recycled. And that really stalled out and we've tried to push it again, but it's not gotten anywhere so far. Another goal of ours is to promote a circular economy, and single-use bags was a big issue for people in the city here. It was raised when Mariano's decided to stop using single-use plastic bags. It was raised for city council that this was happening and we should push it and take advantage of that. Council asked us to do a white paper, but last fall, about single-use bags and what other communities are doing and how effective it is, which we did. The feedback we got was city is not interested really in trying to pass fees or bans. Even though they've seen what it's done for other cities. They would prefer to push retailers to do it themselves. So that's kind of where that stands. Our team is very small. We don't have the resources to go out and do that for the city. Another thing we've tried on single-use bags is Trex has a program that you collect, I think it's 10,000 pounds of single-use plastic bags. And you can do it over the course of a year. They will take those bags and they will build a bench for your organization. So, you know, what we're looking at now is, you know, trying to get the schools, each school could do one or park district or something, just to create that visibility. It's kind of a drop in the bucket, but it would create the visibility. Another goal that came out of our report to the city was to strive to implement some zero waste measures. One thing we did was we pushed the city to apply for a USDA grant for a composting program of some sort. And at the time, there wasn't enough time to apply. This was last summer, right? So getting that one right. So they really didn't do anything at the time and said that we'll do it next time around, and I haven't seen any movement on that yet. Another thing was to support the city's green supply purchasing program, which I think
It's stalled.
it's stalled
Mhm.
as well.
Yep.
So, not a whole lot of action or movement on that goal. And then our last goal, which is really important across the board, I think for all of our committees, is the education portion, and getting people engaged. So, since we couldn't apply for the USDA grant, later in the fall, there was a US EPA grant for, recycling, education and outreach. And they actually did apply for that. They had some good program points in their application. We did not get it. The Metropolitan Mayor's Caucus got, I think, $2 million out of that grant program. And it's part of the ARPA funds. And Ben's words to me were, maybe we can get something from them, or whatever they're setting up for education and outreach, we could apply here. So maybe that will go somewhere. And lastly, courtesy of Kathy, I was working with a high school group out of Naperville North. And they came to us and said that they want to do this project to restart recycling at Naperville North. Apparently, when COVID happened, the recycling kind of went by the wayside, and now they have the open blue bins outside every classroom, and people just throw all kinds of things in them. So most of that goes in the trash. So they're going to create an educational video with some of the money that they won as part of their project in Blast. So that video will educate the students on how to recycle. And hopefully it can be translated across the high schools, middle schools. Maybe they need to change it a little for grade schools, but I think that's a good step, a really good step. So the things that we need as a waste team are really people with time that they can talk to businesses about recycling and using compostable or not single-use items in their business. Talk with the schools, see if there's some way we can help them promote their recycling more. Maybe promote composting at the schools. It's a very educational thing for kids to learn about composting. And maybe once we get something set up, we would need people to help run a styrofoam program. So that's kind of all I had.
Thank you, Barb. Some of the stats from the Naperville's Environment Sustainability Dashboard with respect to waste and recycling. Average household recycling is down 18% since 2015. Beth explained some of the reasons, some of the information behind that statistic. Down from 15 pounds per household per week to 12. Curbside garbage in terms of pounds per household per week has remained steady over the past 9 years, 10 years. But hazardous waste disposal is catching on. And they measure it in drop-offs rather than in pounds, which sounds like a better way to do it. Anything else to add on what Naperville's
I think
tracking?
that 33 pounds, they try and say, oh, we're at our lowest rate, we're not
Yeah.
generating as much trash because we went from 33.6 to like 33.3 over the last 5 or 6 years.
Okay,
So-
it's flat.
It's pretty flat.
I'd like to just interject that I'd encourage everyone to look at this sustainability dashboard on the city's website, because this is a huge step forward for the city and their transparency about what they're doing around sustainability. So you know, get some views on that website so they see that people are checking it out and they care about these issues. And, you know, even give feedback like, oh, this is great, but what about, you know, XYZ are you doing? You know, where are the metrics on that? So definitely check that out.
There'll be a link at the end of the presentation on where to find the sustainability dashboard. The chair of the Transportation Committee, Bruce Jones, is up next. Bruce, here's your microphone.
I'm Bruce Jones, Chair of the Transportation Committee. I also have Justin White, who's going to be talking about micromobility, which is also known as walkability, bikeability. So we have a couple of different categories of efforts going on with the transportation group. Seeing on the screen, sort of the icons up at the top right, we have charging stations. With the state of Illinois passing a bill last year, SB 00040, to provide charging station infrastructure requirements for new construction and for renovation. When a house gets rebuilt or renovated, or when there's new construction of housing, apartment buildings, townhouses, they do put in certain numbers of parking spaces that are EV capable, ready, and installed based on a certain percentage. So one of the things that I had been trying to do for 4 years was to get something like that for Naperville. So luckily, we've incorporated that through a legislation. The next step of that is for businesses. So working with the Transportation and Engineering and Design Group right now to put into their ordinances, which change this year. They do it every 6 years. So this is the right year to do it. Working with them first to get stakeholder meetings, and then we're going to update the ordinances for businesses in a similar kind of way, so that if they're tearing up a parking lot or renovating their garage, their parking garage, they lay in the conduit while the, you know, the ground is torn up, and you don't have to dig up or trench things. Put in circuit breaker panels and plugs where you can, to provide that infrastructure now, because it's going to come later that they're going to want it. So it's going to cost 10 times more later. So why not put the conduit in now while it's really inexpensive, before you lay the concrete, before you do the landscaping, before you put the asphalt down. So we're working on that right now, and hopefully in the next few months, we'll be meeting with stakeholders. If you're interested, let me know. If you're a small business or a large business, whatever, and are interested in that topic, we'd be glad to have you on those stakeholder meetings. Some of the other things include school buses. No, just go
Sorry.
ahead and stay there. Well, okay, sure, turn to the next page, we can do that. Electric vehicle related promotion and education. We have Tom Coleman and a couple of us who do electric vehicle presentations throughout the year, to groups, to organizations, online websites, wherever they can get education. So we educate and promote electric vehicles, including school buses. And Kathy Clarkin and another Kathy on our team, Kathy Biagioli, are involved with school bus promotion and trying to get the school systems on board with electric school buses. There's nothing worse than a smoky diesel fumey school bus that's poisoning your kids, taking them to school and back. So we're promoting electric school buses. They're slowly catching on and trying it here and there. They do have some 203 and 204 that they're going to be continuing to grow over time. And we're hoping that that grows a lot over time, especially since we have school bus manufacturers right in our own backyard. We have Lion Electric, and then there's lots of other school bus manufacturers around. The key to that is cost, and with some of the grants and things, there might be a way to get those. But because costs are coming down with batteries, hopefully in the next year or 2 or 3, they'll be more affordable, but they pay for themselves over time. If you can get over that first lump of money that you have to pay for the school buses, they pay for themselves. The maintenance is nil. So there's a lot of things about electric school buses that make a lot of sense. Public transportation, that's also part of the school bus project with Kathy Biagioli, Kathy Clarkin. See what else. So, okay, next page. Justin White will now talk about micromobility, bikeability, walkability, and the efforts that they've gone through, and they do a lot.
Speaker.
Yep.
Hello, everybody. I'm Justin. You've never seen me here before, but you've heard of my name probably. I work with Tom Craighead. He's a gentleman that's been involved with this subcommittee of the Transportation Committee. So there's about 4 of us right now that are active in the biking and walking. So there's myself, Tom Craighead, Ben Bocher, and Mitchell. So we're interchanging in various activities. It's kind of a core group here. But I've got some things up here that we've accomplished and worked through, but I'll just touch on real quick to save the time because I'm sure there's an agenda here. So we talked about who we are. What are we focused on? We focus on micromobility. So a lot of times what's happened in Naperville is we always think about how do we get to the park? How do we take our kids to the playground? But what we're trying to do is shift the dialogue from that to more of a transportation offset cars in the road. We don't really have a bus system, obviously, in our community. So we've been working hard to make sure we get that point across. With that, we also want to make sure it's safe. Unfortunately, we get down to why I am here, why most of us participate in this group is because of the safety issues. So I will give you 3 really strong examples. Last February, there was a Richard Nauman, February 2023. He's a 77-year-old gentleman walking near Edwards Hospital. He died, hit by a SUV. Number 2, Micah Ginsburg, November 2023, near Wabansie High School. He was hit by a truck on a bicycle. Number 3 just happened on Saturday. This Saturday at the corner of Liberty and Route 59. A gentleman, 65-year-old gentleman was on a bicycle and he was hit. He's in serious condition. So all of these can happen to us. So just wanted to share with you, that's our motivation for being here. So how are we trying to change things with the help of Nest and other people in the community? So I kind of tried to summarize what we're trying to do, and that's awareness, advocacy, and action. So how are we trying to bring awareness? So couple of things that we do is related to schools. So we have walk and roll programs that have been going on. We're trying to accentuate that with the schools, elementary schools, for people to take alternative means to get to school. Encourage parents. A lot of times, some of us remember when our parents said, "You're riding your bike, you're walking," and we kind of lost that over the last few years. So trying to encourage the schools and the school district to encourage people to get back with walking, riding their bike. Some schools don't even have bus service. So that's another way to motivate families. There's actually an event coming up in May where it takes very light participation from anybody, but it's actually going to be a ghost bike commemoration. So for Micah, the high school student that was hit, there will be a ghost bike commemoration on May 19th over near Wabansie. It's actually Ogden and Montgomery Road. So Tom Craighead is setting up the commemoration. The parents will be there. The Naperville Police, Aurora Police will be there. Boy Scout supporters, he's a Boy Scout as well. And then some of the local bike clubs in Aurora and Naperville will be riding to the event in silence. So it's called a ride of silence. Some of you may have seen that in Chicago, where they have a lot of incidents. As far as advocacy is concerned, as you can see up here, we meet with TAB, which is the Transportation Advisory Board. They're nominated by the mayor. TED, we've heard about that. That's the engineering department. So we meet with them regularly to talk about safety issues. And then like Bruce mentioned earlier, we were able to, with persistence and the use of the survey that we got spearheaded last year, we were able to convince various people to put a budget line item in that we can update the bicycle plan from 1997. So, that's a long time ago. But we're happy that at least we got that approved. So now we're working really hard to continue to keep TED motivated to actually implement this RFP It takes a lot of effort, because they're going through, I guess, what you called it, a reorg, Bruce. So, I don't want to get this group into politics too much, but if you feel like you have a way to send emails, call people, I would say Bill Evans, Andy Hines, and Ben Momus. All those people, if you share with them how you want to see a new bicycle and walking plan, please do it. Tell them how you want, and even in this online on the city website, there is that place, I think, where you can put in your request for feedback on an intersection. And then the last part was action. So we talked about the bicycle walk plan. That's the big one. So some of these events will come up. If you can, please email Kathy, Bruce, to let them know you want to help out. You don't have to be on our committee per se, but at least say, hey, if we have an event where we're showing up at City Hall, or we're gonna have a ride to let the city council people know that we care, or something like that. We'll just put you on an email list. If we can, we'd like somebody to just show up. You don't have to have a fancy bike. You don't have to have anything. We want you guys just to be regular people, walk, ride, whatever. So please share your email addresses with Kathy or Bruce. So, but we appreciate everybody's support, and thank you, Bruce, for letting me give a couple minutes. Absolutely. Yep. All right.
From the dashboard, residential EV adoption is accelerating 13 times over the past 5 years alone. I think that's pretty remarkable. 1 EV per 13 Naperville households. That's 4 times the national average. And Naperville has the highest density of EVs per household in the state of Illinois. The city is investing in hybrid vehicles, reduce fossil fuel consumption, and city vehicle gasoline diesel usage is down 28% over the past 18 years. So seems like it's possible to take that curve down even faster. Our energy department, our energy committee is chaired by Maureen Stillman. And from our meeting with Ben, the city's perspective on electricity, they're currently reviewing the greenhouse gas emissions inventory. And it seems like that's a project that's been ongoing for quite a while. They're requesting additional information from a consultant, but it is ongoing, and that's a critical piece of what the city needs to do, wants to do. The sustainability report project will continue to build out an open data story map, considering format and delivery date for more traditional reporting, magazine, online content, ArcGIS story map, etc. The EPA Climate Pollution Reduction Grant is a joint participation that's led by Kane County. Were this to come in, $2.2 million in requested funds would add 510 kilowatts of solar capacity by expanding solar installations at the Muni Center, the Electric Service Center, and Public Works Department. Also, and this is something that engenders a lot of conversation, they'll be creating and permitting a demand response, ostensibly to lower electricity costs and peak demands by offering incentives to shift or shed energy demand. It's currently only offered to business customers and on a voluntary basis. And by Ben's admission, it's not working well yet. Time of use rate structures, which will incentivize ratepayers to use energy when it's cheap and serve energy when it's expensive for residential and business ratepayers, is planned for January 2025. They're waiting to get their software right, is what I've heard. The city's expanded renewable energy with the Illinois Solar Energy Association and the city's renewable energy program. There's some nice goodies in that. The Energy Committee and the City Engagement Committee met with the electric utility director on April, this last April 9th. More on that to come. I'd like to introduce, for those of you who have not met, Maureen Stillman is Chair of the Energy Committee.
Thank you. Are you able to hear me? So just adding to what Ted said, we actually meet with the head of the electric utility every month. So we've been doing that for quite a while. And as you can imagine, the hot topic is the IMEA contract extension. So our power supplier has asked us to extend the current contract. Well, by 20 years, because the current one doesn't end until 2035. But the value of that contract extension is $2 billion. So we spend $100 million a year in electricity. So it's a lot of money and it's a very long extension. So that's why this is a big deal. This will be, the city council will be voting on this, and it's probably the most important decision they'll make, not only for themselves this year, but for many years to come. If they do decide to say yes to this, it'll have ramifications for the next 30 years. So it's a big dollar amount and
So it's cool.
big deal, right? So what we've been doing is working with other groups, and that's been ongoing for a while. So in terms of the IMEA, Naperville is the largest member. We have 35% of the power, the total power we buy. Turns out that St. Charles is second, they're 14%. So they have the same contract put in front of them and the same request to extend. So I've actually been going there and meeting with them and going to their city council meetings. So do that here and do that there. They organized in a very quick timeline, and they've talked to all the city council members. And at the last city council meeting I was at, the electric director there, they wanted to get a quick vote on this, and the city council made it clear that that's not going to happen. So that was a very good meeting. They asked a lot of hard questions, and they said they want their questions answered. There's plenty of time. So that's good.
That's great news.
And then Winnetka is another city that's taking a hard look at this. And if you add up the percentage of Naperville, St. Charles, and Winnetka, we're 50% power. We're also working with the Sierra Club, the League of Women Voters, and the Citizens Utility Board. We actually held a joint meeting, another one back in March, and that's on the next slide. I'll say more about that. But so it's going to take a village to work on this and get the requirements and goals that we're interested in to fulfill sustainability objectives. So what are the challenges? So they have a deadline, the IMEA does, that they want this extension either signed or turned down by April of 2025. So that gives us a year, about a year from now. We do have issues with the contract, and then there's a second piece called the sustainability plan, which we also have issues with that. And we have talked about, you know, what those are, and we just started to talk to the utility director about a couple of them in our list. So that, and we also want the city council to understand, if they vote for this contract, they also get that sustainability plan. So that plan is actually like sitting on the side. It's not a contractual document. And then there's a contract, which is separate. So sorry, this is kind of complicated, but that's just the nature of the way it's set up. So another challenge is communicating, right, with not only the city council, but the citizens of Naperville, to make them aware of what is this, what are the ramifications, what's in the contract, what's in the sustainability plan. It's just a lot of information, and obviously I can't give a talk on that in 5 minutes. But we need both education and communication. And then, of course, transparency, we're always asking for that from our elected officials, but mostly from the IMEA, where we've had a lot of problems getting the information that we have wanted over the years. Some of it we've had to FOIA. Next slide. So the successes was at the March 18th meeting, North Central College hosted it. So they've been very, very helpful in terms of their support. And 120 people attended. And before this, last September, we also had a big meeting about coal in the city council chamber that had 200 people. So our community meetings have been well attended, and again, education. So I want to talk about what are some of the needs that we have. So we have asked the city council / IMEA and Brian to get us what's called an integrated resources plan. This plan would look forward and do some forecasting in terms of things like what are renewables doing? Is the price of solar going down, and the availability of it, and getting it to the grid, wind, solar, and then of course there's coal, natural gas. So you've got your fossil fuel category, you've got renewables, nuclear. What are the trends for all these? Because this contract, if you're going to sign something that's going to go on for 30 years, you want to look ahead and as much as you can try to project what's there, and then what are our requirements? What do we want as a city, and how do we weigh these things? And then there are many changes coming to the grid. So right now, one of the things that keeps getting pointed out to us as well, there's a backlog of renewable projects that are trying to onboard to the, so we're in an area called PJM, right? This is the regional grid. So there are more renewable projects wanting to get on the grid than the operators have time. You have to process it. It's actually not a trivial thing to do it. But the regional operators, all of them are upgrading the grid so that more of these projects can come online in the next 5 years. And also the federal government in the Inflation Reduction Act has allocated a lot of money to get this done. So again, in the integrated resources plan, that's something that you'll see saying, well, in 5 years, we'll have more of this online, instead of saying, no, you can't have that. There's a shortage, there's not enough, whatever. So that's why it's so important to look ahead, see where federal government is going, listen to what the regional operators are saying. So we need a plan to transition to clean energy. So over time, we know we can't have that today or next week, but over time we need a plan. And then we need citizens to write to the city council to say that this is important. Speaking at city council meetings, that has the 3-minute limit. That's always an important way to be heard. And there is, at the state level, there's a transparency law that would require these regional, like the IMEA, to be more transparent. So ComEd and Ameren are regulated, but the regional, like NIMPA and IMEA, are not. And so we want some of those regulations to actually be adopted for them as well, so that we can find out more of these things that we're interested in learning in order to assess what, just basically what's going on, get our questions answered. These are supposed to be, public utilities in the sense of the citizens are supposed to have input into them, city councils, et cetera. And we want more of that. The other thing I don't have on here is that we meet on the first and the third Wednesday. We just changed our schedule to meet the first and third Wednesday of every month, and we meet on Zoom always. So if you want to give your time and effort, just send an email to, is it info@sustainnaperville?
Yeah, or chairenergy@sustainnaperville.org.
And also it is, the Zoom link will be published on the Sustain Naperville website.org.
Thanks, Maureen. There's so much going on in energy these days, and Maureen has been just everywhere. From the dashboard, with respect to electricity, electricity demand at the utility has been decreasing 1.4% annually due to energy efficiency. And a number of, that's
That's a win.
that's really good news. And a number of energy efficiency grant programs are available. There were 13 times as many residential solar installations in 2023 than there were just 5 years ago. Currently the final year count was 907. Does that seem like a high number to y'all?
That's since the beginning.
Since-
907 total houses in
Yeah.
Naperville have solar. That's not in 1 year.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
going up.
Since 2018. Yeah.
Out of
Going like that.
50,000 households in Naperville.
Not only is it rising, but the rate of rise seems to be increasing. And
Long way to go.
we do. However, Naperville does offer rebates for installation and a pretty lucrative utility bill credits due to the net metering program. But there are some more things that we would like to see. The chairman of Community Engagement Committee, Bill Simon, for those who've not yet met Bill.
I'm gonna stand up also so that everybody can hear me. So we're community engagement, and basically what we do is take all the great info from all the brains we got, and we try to get it out to the community. So we want to keep you informed on what's going on, get you to come to our events, and then, you know, hopefully as we go forward, help you reach out to the government to express your opinions on the direction that Naperville should take. So some of the goals that we have, first and foremost would be to support this campaign against the early extension of the IMEA contract. We heard a lot about that tonight, and to, you know, kind of keep that going. So we're actually, we have a plan to keep talking about it over the next couple of months. And maybe you know, I guess we're not exactly sure when the vote's gonna be, but when the vote is trying to approach to really increase that. And then our second goal is to increase Nest reach across the Naperville public. So, you know, the way we are now, we're probably, you know, we're hitting like a core group of people like you all, right, that are concerned, but how do we get the word out to the wider public? So if anybody here has some good ideas, you know, we would definitely want to hear about that. Linda here, she actually gave us a good one recently, and we'll be bringing that forward. The third goal would be to continue to draw in new volunteers for our social media efforts. I'll tell you a little bit about this now, but a lot of our volunteers tend to be fairly short term. So we need to continue to do that so that we can always have at least one person, but hopefully a couple people that are available to do social media. Next slide. As far as successes go, I'm pretty proud of the coverage we had on social media for the March event. We're not always real strong on social media, but we had a couple of people working on social media during the lead up to the March event. So we're not only getting the word out with, you know, getting things out to interest people to come, but also covering other topics. And then the second bullet, this is a limited effect. I would say we made a good effort to support the glass donations. I don't know how much money we actually brought in, but we put in a good effort. We had a couple volunteers work on that. I'm proud of them. And then the last item talks about how we do get social media volunteers. Our most successful way has been through an organization called Giving DuPage. They have a portal, so if people are interested in volunteering, you know, from anywhere across DuPage County, they can find us and they can volunteer with us. And we've gone through several people over the past couple of years, so that's been a good success. But like I said, some of them are students, they're working on a project for their class, or maybe they have a requirement for social, a certain number of volunteer hours, so they come to us through that direction. Next slide. So as far as challenges go, probably our biggest challenge is kind of internal, and that is to increase the conversations and the inputs coming from other committees within this. The exception would be transportation. The transportation guys and the guys promoting walkability and bikeability, they're always really good. And we've had some information go out in the past years helping them. So, but we can always be better in that area. The second one is, again, dealing with the turnover of social media volunteers. I mean, ideally, you're thinking, okay, it'd be great if we had this volunteer and they could just work on great stuff and put it out. But, if the students like in college, and maybe they don't even live in Naperville, but, one of our students is from the Elgin area, they need a lot of hand-holding and they don't really become self-sufficient sometimes. We had one Miriam who was really good at being self-sufficient. Next slide. And then as far as needs, if there's anybody here who has an interest in contributing to our social media efforts, we always need more people. We're kind of covered now, but you never know. So we want to have more people there, and especially with graphics skills. Initially, when we started our committee, we had a person who did professional graphics. And that was really great, but that person had a change in job and couldn't help us out. And again, also, if anybody has any ideas on how to increase or reach across Naperville through any way, if you have any ideas, either speak to me after the meeting, or if you want to get a message to me, the website has not only our committee email on the committee page, but you can just email info@sustainnaperville.org to get that and get in contact with me. So that's it. Any questions?
All right.
So one of Kathy Clarkin's mini hats is chair of the Nest Youth Committee.
Well,
And
I'm not chair,
Oh,
but
sorry.
the youth we have youth chairs.
okay, all right. And an exciting event was held last week. I'd let Kathy explain everything.
So I won't take too much time on this, but I think this is like the inspirational, joyous, part of the evening. This is like, I think, an unmitigated success, this project, and some people in the room were involved. So BLAST, Building Leadership Around Sustainable Transformation, is actually a project of the nonprofit that I run, Accelerate Climate Solutions, but we partnered with Nest and DuPage Children's Museum to bring this project. And it is students come up with an idea to address an environmental concern, any kind of environmental project. And then they got paired with mentors. And then they wrote a proposal. And then last week on April 11th, we had a big ceremony and they pitched their ideas in front of panels of judges. And if you go to the next slide, I think we have some pictures. So this was super exciting. These are first, second, and third place winners in the individual category. So Grace wrote a bill. She wrote a bill for the Illinois State Legislature on climate education. Super excited about that. She's with her mentor there, Mimi Cohen. This is Cora. She's going to put educational native plant gardens at elementary schools in her district. I can't remember. She's like someplace outside of Naperville, like, I don't know, someplace south of here. And then this is Alicia, who is on Phil's community engagement committee. She is all about recycling, and I think she's even going to do that Trex project where they build a bench. So, and then these are all the students that were part of the individual category. And then the next one these are the winners of the group project category. He was with some other students that had to leave, but he was part of a group. So that's the first place project, Seeds of Hope. They have already started getting native plant seeds and putting them in libraries, and then people can just take them and plant native plants in their yard. So they have 5 libraries already. Second place is
My group.
yes, Beth's group. She already mentioned this, District 203 recycling efforts. So this is the Eco Club at Naperville North. And then her partner in the group project category was sick, but this is Ani. And they helped organize Nest march in the St. Patrick's Day parade to raise awareness about IMEA. And while Ani was giving her presentation, Councilman Benny White came in and he heard, he missed part of it, but he heard some of it, advocating for putting it on the brakes for our IMEA contract. And we also had Councilwoman Bruzanne Taylor was there, and Councilwoman Longabaugh came to blast. So that was pretty exciting. I think, do I have any other pictures? Oh yeah, this is just like to highlight that to make this happen, we had lots of volunteers. So we had mentors, we had judges, and then we had volunteers at the event. So the community really came together, across all these generations to support these students and to make these projects, better and to elevate them and to support them. So the winners received some funding. So I've already heard back from them about how they're going to use their funding. And so super exciting. And I will say also, just to put another plug, we still need funding for this because we are not the blast didn't end when the ceremony ended. These students are continuing to do these projects and they continue to need our support, whether it's financial support or mentorship or, what have you. So blast is it's an ongoing thing.
So just to add to what Kathy said, this was a super high energy event, nonstop go from start to finish. The energy and the excellence that the high schoolers brought with their projects and with their enthusiasm, with their knowledge was just a sight to behold. The high quality of the judges. It was just a pleasure to be involved in that. And looking forward to next year.
Yeah, and we'll be publishing, the stories of these students, so you can look for that in the future.
Amy Kaufman Phillips is chair of our Natural Resources Committee. She was not able to be here tonight, is receiving something at Lyle. Hope to make it before the end of this evening. So she does arrive. We'll certainly
I'm
introduce
online.
her. Okay. But the city's perspective on natural resources from the meeting we held with Ben Milnes. Naperville will be a site coordinator for the Page River Sweep. That takes place Saturday, May 4th from 9 to noon. Amy Phillips will be leading the coordination, and Ben from the city will be organizing a team at the Naperville Riverwalk. The electric lawn equipment incentive program launched on April 1st and will close on May 31st or when funds run out. $10,000 this year is budgeted, $50 per household, and in 2023, 233 rebates were offered. This is $50 whether you want to buy an electric lawnmower, electric leaf blower, any type of electric gardening tool, battery powered electric or electric gardening tool.
Could I make a plug?
Sure.
It's kind of hard to find on the city's website, so we did do a post at the beginning of April on our Facebook, so you can go there, get the link.
Yep.
Yeah.
Get there fast. They ran out last year. Sorry. The Watershed Film Festival was held North Central College campus, led by Professor Reed Perkins. That was on March 21st and 22nd. The Naperville Environmental and Sustainability Department was included in that, along with the Conservation Foundation, Forest Preserve District of DuPage County, the Naperville Park District, Morton Arboretum and Trout Unlimited. It was a nice film, Mussel Matters, talking about how to reconstitute freshwater mussels to rejuvenate streams and rivers, not just in the county, but spanning multiple counties. If you want to support pollinators, consider registering for No Mow May. Registration period is April 15th through May 3rd. Also, from Ben shared with us that, oh, I'm sorry, this is from Amy. The Natural Resources Committee is currently meeting on an ad hoc basis, no standing meetings, but they are working directly with the city to forward their goals in relation to minimizing turf grass, promoting native plants and electric lawn equipment, and fostering a healthy tree canopy. And if you're interested in learning more, you're welcome to contact Amy directly, A. Phillips at theconservationfoundation.org. What Kathy and I have been doing in the City Engagement Committee is, together with Marine and the Energy Committee, is meeting with Brian Groth on a monthly basis. At the last meeting, he made us aware that 2 city RFPs had been issued. One has to do with trying to put a dollar amount and some value on electricity related services currently provided by the IMEA. What would this look like if it was provided by someone else or internal to Naperville? They're also issuing an RFP, or have issued RFPs, for electricity price forecasts. There's a lot more to it than just what they see for electricity rates, which is practically impossible to forecast with a lot of accuracy. But a lot of detail will be forthcoming from that, and should be considered when the city council makes their decision on whether to renew early or not the contract with the IMEA. And we meet with city council members on both regularly and on an ad hoc basis. One of what I would consider my challenge, or our challenges, is to be able to access more city council members. It seems like the door is open for a few, but we want to be able to meet with folks that may be a little bit concerned about the impact of not just going along with city staff recommendation. And we also need more business connections. One of the great things that happened at the St. Charles City Council meeting was a business owner, a manufacturing business owner, wrote a very well-received letter and spoke at least one, or was it 2 city council meetings, very persuasive.
Persuasive.
To get more influential members of the business community behind a just vote no on a contract extension would be valuable and persuasive, I think, help our efforts greatly. So if you have any ideas about who we should approach or who we could approach, we'd love to hear them. Paul Deffenbaugh has been working with both the Energy Committee I'm sorry, with city, city engagement and the energy committee as a liaison.
Ending up working with everybody.
That's probably true.
Here, you want to pass them the,
But I am kind of your roving department person. Good evening, everyone. So one of the things that happened, as Maureen rightly said, the meeting March 18th was one of the big successes, I think, for the Energy Committee, and there was a lot of excitement and interest coming out of that. One of the hopes was that we could create an environment where city council and other folks didn't hear just from NES, that they started to hear from individuals from the community independent of NES, but would have the same kind of message that we have. So we thought it important here to kind of catch you up on some of the stuff that has happened and how that message has gone out since that meeting. NCTV 17 did an article. Theirs was called "Don't Sign Now, Naperville Environmental Leaders Detail Dangers of a Potential City Power Contract Extension." And that's got all the great SEO words in it. The Daily Herald ran an article on the IMEA contract. Theirs was called "Naperville's Coal-Heavy Electricity Supply Hangs in the Balance as Contract Renewal Looms." And Kathy was interviewed extensively for that article as well. And then Nest does 3 minutes with Nest at every city council meeting. And in the April 2nd city council meeting, Ted, you talked about the integrated resource plan and how important that was to the IMEA contract. And then April 16th, which is tomorrow, Ted gets to stand up again and talk 3 minutes with Nest on the financial risks of signing this contract early. So we're coming into those meetings with specific messages that are different every time, but spotlight the issues that we're doing. The Nest did an update in the Naperville Connected. That's that blue one sheet that everybody gets delivered, comes from the city. And we had in that, it will be coming out, I think, later this month. In that there is everything that's going on with Nest, but a portion of that is Nest's position on the IMEA contract, which is great that that's going to every single household in Naperville. And primarily through Maureen's energetic social engagement, I'll call it. Nest is coordinating with St. Charles, Batavia, and Winnetka groups. All, and I may have the Batavia one incorrect, but on this IMEA contract, making sure that we're all kind of having the same message across those. Brian Groth is the director, as mentioned earlier, of the Naperville Electric Utility. He did the first of 3 presentations on this IMEA extension, and 2 people spoke on the agenda to that. Greg Hubert from the Clean Energy Alliance of Naperville spoke about the importance of having an open process to this so the community would know what's going on. And then also as a kind of on his own, Dr. Remus Gilvitis, did I get that correct? Gilvitis, he spoke to that about some of the new technology that's out there and how this, there are limits to what one can do. He wanted to put solar panels on his house that were far more powerful than what was allowed under IMEA. So he wondered, why can't I do that? So there's a lot of stuff going on. Hopefully, there's a lot of stuff we don't know that's going on. And that was the idea of this March meeting that individuals are doing. I thought I would toss it out if anybody knows of any other outreaches, letters to the editor, letters to city councils, any other outreach that you've heard of that that we hadn't, I didn't have on the list here.
how many of you were at our March meeting? So not everyone. Okay. And did any of you who were at the March meeting take any action afterwards? Did you write city council? Okay. So we still have opportunities, just anytime you want, you can write city council and just say you have concerns about early renewal of the IMEA contract. You can write about any of these other things that we've talked about too. But you know, whatever your concerns are, it's a $2 billion. Have they done their due diligence? I'm concerned about coal, you know, whatever, just your own personal perspective. Keep it short, keep it personal. You don't even have to mention Nest. The more people that they hear from, the more that they're gonna. We saw this in St. Charles. The folks in St. Charles met with their city council members, and when the city council members had a lot of questions for their electric utility director at the last council meeting, because people like you in this room let city council know that they had concerns. And so those council members knew to ask. So,
Yeah, and I think, you know, it's hard to say whether the message is getting through the individual council people. I think as Ted referred to, we have good connections with a few of them, but some of them are kind of standoffish. But you just keep having to push the message, and have it come from lots of different directions. And kind of a common theme to the message as well, which is this is financially risky.
Yep.
Thank you.
What are the next two? I don't.
It's part of the city council meetings, and it will be on the agenda that he'll do a presentation. I don't know whether he's scheduled. I haven't seen the
this,
agenda for
tomorrow, Brian Groth the electric utility director will be giving his own version of an update to council members.
And you can sign up for the open forum section, which is 3 minutes in front of the city council. You can also sign up to speak to a specific agenda item. And that's where Dr. Gilvitis and Greg Hubert spoke, was that to that specific agenda.
Thank you, Paul. Oops. Just a few announcements before we head into some question and answer. There's a Nest Memorial Day Parade. That's in the planning stages, is that right?
I have to get back to you. I don't think we can march.
Okay, all right,
Never mind,
never mind. Are we looking at Labor Day?
just move on.
Okay. Climate Action Lobby Day, this is an event in Springfield, is scheduled for May 9th. Some of the groups that we liaison with are asking if there's any interest in Naperville, anyone from Naperville, to head on down to Springfield and participate in that. If you're interested, send an email to info@sustainnaperville.org. And the next meeting, I think we're going to have it right here, is May 21st for the building codes and stretch code adoption that Barbara was talking about.
All right, can I just jump in really quick before we get to questions? That was a lot to sit through, right? Sustainability is a big topic, and we're a big volunteer organization. So we appreciate that you sat through all those details. I just want to remind everyone why we have to do all of this. The Executive Secretary of the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change said, the next 2 years are essential to saving our planet. We still have a chance to make greenhouse gas emissions tumble with a new generation of national climate plans, but we need these stronger plans now. So we're working on this because time is running out when it comes to taking climate action, to prevent even more catastrophe from climate change. So this is why we do this. This is why we're taking, to get to net zero, you got to do everything. So you can't just deal with the big things. You got to do everything. So just a reminder, even though maybe you don't connect with every issue that we talked about tonight, everyone can play a part. Everyone can make a difference. Everyone can contribute. So you just gotta find that place where you fit in and take some action. And we together, that's how change happens. Like people like us coming together, you know, the successes, the progress that we made, that you heard about tonight, some of that would not have happened without people like us. So you can be part of that. Everyone can be part of that. And then the other thing that I will add that didn't really get covered, it's an election year, and then next April, we have our city council election. And so political engagement is really critical to making progress on sustainability and the climate crisis. So we're gonna be talking about civic engagement even more as those elections come up. We don't take sides, we don't, endorse any candidates, but that's like a way that you can really make a difference is to get involved politically as well. So, anyway, I've talked enough. We do have a little bit of time left for questions, comments, ideas. So, and Pat, we might have a few online too.
They're all direct to us. They're all paste them in so you can see them.
Okay,
So
all right, all right. You wanna go first?
Did anybody see the Sunday morning CBS presentation on the lack of actual recycling of plastic?
Yes,
It was,
I did. It seemed very one-sided to me. They had a woman who, she had been a teacher or something, and she had a garage full of plastics and she was a chemical engineer or something.
Yeah.
But had been out of the field for a long time. So, kind of
But the
questioned
fact
her credibility,
well,
but she claimed that there's no way that we can recycle it. It's a fallacy from the plastics industry, that recycling is a thing.
I guess the part that caught my attention was the fact that, many cities and organizations are pushing plastic recycling, but in reality, the information even before her was anywhere remotely close to being true. We're in the low double digits of actually recycling the plastic. So we're gathering it, but it's ending up in the dump anyway.
We gotta do a better job.
Which is, well,
Yeah.
how much you gathered from the story, if the plastic or petrochemical industry has done the same job selling this as the tobacco industry. We're doing, but in reality, we're not doing anything.
Yeah, the petrochemical industry, big oil, whatever you want to call it. In response to forecasted decreasing demand in the transportation sector, is looking to plastics as being a growth opportunity for them, and that's really not the way this has to go.
Yeah, just really briefly, reuse when you can. We can't avoid plastics, so learn how to recycle as best you can. That's what you have. The things that you can take action on. Don't just give up on it.
Right.
And definitely don't conflate plastic recycling with recycling everything else.
Right.
Right? You can't just say recycling doesn't work. It's like certain plastics are not getting recycled. So there's a Groot app. You can get an app on your phone to find out if something's recyclable. Do you have anything that you would put on top of that?
Just that I felt that the woman who was espousing that the plastics industry promoted green recycling as their method of greenwashing, that it wasn't really a thing, and she seemed kind of out of touch with all of the progress that's been made over the last 5 years in recycling, so plastics. So there's new
Yeah.
technologies. capabilities, so. Don't not do. it.
I didn't.
Yeah, so, oh, for IMEA specifically, yeah. So what is the mindset of the council when it comes to the IMEA contract? We have not been able to get meetings with, one-on-one meetings with all the council members, so I can't speak to that, but, most, the council members that we have talked to have some skepticism, some concerns. Why are we being asked to renew early? You know, what are our other options? You know, the council has not seen the proposed contract even. They have not seen it. So they are, for the most part, I think, just trying to understand and gather the information that they need to make a good judgment. So I don't think, you know, I think that if we were not out here getting in the Daily Herald and having these meetings, you know, the default might be just status quo, you know? And so that's why we're making this noise, because then they have to stop and think like, oh, this isn't just something that we sign off on. So I don't think that, you know, right now, as far as we know, there aren't council members that are just like, okay, we're doing IMEA. But like I said, we haven't talked to all of them. So we have a version of the contract already. It has not been shared with the IMEA, but we also learned that they are still revising. There was a contract approved by IMEA in February. Naperville has already given, the electric utility has given some feedback on changes to it already. So it's still like this working document, but for whatever reason, city council has not seen it yet.
So can I add to that? What actually happened was in December, the Energy
dead.
Committee had a meeting with Brian.
It's dead.
Oh.
Oh,
How
It's
about
dead.
this one?
Nope.
No.
It doesn't work.
Unplug them. Unplug that to the side. We'll just have to use the
No,
laptop.
it's,
Yeah.
don't worry about it.
Okay.
okay, I will speak up. So yeah, in December, we had a meeting with Brian. I brought up a specific issue with, the contract said they were banning peak shaving. This was brought up at the March 18th meeting. They're looking at that now. So peak shaving basically means that for example, on really hot days in the summer, the use of electricity spikes when everybody turns on their air conditioner. There is a place in the contract that says Naperville and other member cities are allowed to get what's called a member-directed resource, which includes both renewables and a battery. But then later in the contract, it says you can't use your battery for peak shaving. So it's like, okay, you can have a battery, but you can't do this with it, which is what you want to do, right? You're shaking your head. So I brought this up to Brian and said, I don't understand this. This is a ban for 30 years. So anyway, that is being talked through and worked on. So that was probably the first, you know, at these meetings, we're just with him for an hour. So we actually have a number of issues. That's just one of them. But that one did get talked through, and then that feedback did make it back to the IMEA, and they're working on it. So I don't know what the final text will look like, but that's how I want this process to go. We bring our concerns to them, and then we'll just see. In fact, we've brought a number of concerns to them about the sustainability plan. None of those got included. And that was several months back. But we're gonna go back with them again, because as I said earlier, two are tied. If you say yes to the contract, which is a legal document, you're also saying yes to the sustainability plan, which is not a legal document, which means, you know, it's fuzzy, it can change, whatever. That's our other objection to it. It's actually literally 3 pages long. It's not an in-depth plan, so. That,
I don't know how realistic that is.
you're right. So that is yet another, another layer of difficulty. I think the first step is just to get them to listen to what we find wrong with the sustainability plan, which we have not been successful at yet, to be blunt. So the only thing that I see that we made some progress on is the peak shaving, which was on the original contract on page 10. So I have read the contract, both the sustainability and I know what's in it. We know what things we have issues with. And then we also have questions. So here's another example. Naperville right now bans community solar. That is not in the contract. It's not in the sustainability plan. It's actually an IMEA policy. So there are many moving parts to this whole thing. That's another one I want changed. I want it to go into the contract or somewhere written, not in a vague policy of where is it written down, again, as a transparency problem. Put in the contract that we can have community solar. It should not be banned. This is, let me just describe it. So apartment dwellers who want, for example, who want to have solar, but the landlord, of course, owns the roof, and maybe the landlord isn't interested, whatever the reason, that a third party can then build a solar field, and then the apartment dwellers can buy a little piece of it. And right now, ComEd has one in Rockford. So people in Rockford get the green jobs, and then, for example, people in Chicago can buy a chunk of that community solar.
One of the main problems with the sustainability plan is that it's not a sustainability plan, it's a how to keep our coal plan. There's nothing in it that says coal will reduce and renewables will increase at all. So that's the biggest problem. It's not a sustainability plan. It's a coal plan with a little bit of tweaking around the edges to show a battery and some other
So
green things.
to turn that into something positive, so Naperville Electric Utility actually asked us to kind of write up what we would like to see in the next contract, you know, so that we're all on the same page. They understand exactly what we're asking for. So that's something that we're doing. So we're not just, we don't like this. This is what best practice is. This is what's going to move us to clean energy. That's what we're going to tell them. Excellent question.
That's a very.
Yes and yes.
Excellent
We have
question.
multiple answers.
So, yes, thank you. Anybody who wants to have a cookie and go, anybody who wants to keep talking,
Your reward. for sitting-
those cookies are from the BLAST program, by the way, so. So our sort of position as Nest is that we're agnostic on who the next electric supply contractor is, and that we want Naperville to define what we want in the next contract and then find somebody that can provide that. Instead of, here's a contract that we've been offered, take it or leave it, kind of like, what do we want? And then, yes, and then, you know, look out in the marketplace, negotiate with IMEA, like find a way to meet whatever those needs are. And one of the things we want to define is we want to move to clean energy. Does this contract have a plan to move to clean energy? And that's the integrated resource plan is part of that we've been talking about. So that's why when we say, we don't say no to the IMEA contract, we say no to early renewal because it's gonna take time to get all that figured out.
And this is from someone on Zoom, this is from Erin. She's asking, is anyone considering yard signs?
I made my own, put my own up.
Good for you.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Was it say?
one customer, but.
What did it say?
I've had people drive by and stop and read it.
What
Nice.
does it say?
It says, I can read it to you.
Take a picture and we'll post it on social media.
I've got one.
Without your
Awesome.
address.
So I can send you a picture.
Yeah.
But,
So, yard signs are not really a Nest thing. We're more about collaborating to solve problems than we are about like opposing things. We're about educating. So that could like yard signs, I think we would be happy if somebody did that, but we're not gonna do it. Plus, we have no budget.
what I wrote says 80% of Naperville's electricity comes from coal. The city council may extend this to 2055. Ask me how to help.
Nice.
Oh, nice.
And
Nice.
I put
Good job.
the system in Naperville.org.
Right.
Cool. Thank you.
Great job, Mike.
Any other questions, comments? Yeah, go for it.
Absolutely, I can show you. Address.
Sounds like the only way to get it is if somebody else pays for it. like-
No, no, so the city is looking into. They're talking with the other communities we've brought them their attention to. As far as, you know, space, how much space does it take? How much effort is the collection? What kind of time, personnel wise, do you need to run the equipment? Is it 2 hours a week or is it, 10 hours a week? And then based on that, they're looking at things like, Groot already runs the recycling collection over at Fort Hill for like people who live in apartments. Is there space there and would Groot be willing to also make sure that the styrofoam is collected right? Right, and that's 2 days a week for 2 hours a day for the recycling center. And then I don't have the impression that it takes very long to run the densifier. It's not a huge piece of equipment. It's maybe 4 feet square. Looking at his pictures. And then Mount Prospect was the one that said, yeah, this grant and is running it. They told him, just beware when you start collecting styrofoam. It's gonna grow like a mushroom cloud. So.
People are interested, so, and, we talked to a city council member who was pretty interested, so I think we just started talking to, staff about this. So I think that it has potential to something, even if it's just, events, not like an ongoing thing, but they organize events, so. But that's something you can write your city council about too.
Yeah. I mean, for each person to take a carload of styrofoam they've collected and drive 10 miles into North Aurora and back, 20 miles round trip, that is not sustainable. Right. Right. There's
Yeah.
a handful of churches that do collections and will take it there for you. But being able to collect it at a in-city location and manage it would be ideal.
Do it the same way they do shredding.
Yeah. Mhm. Yeah, that's a good,
Exactly.
there you go. That's circular. Oh, so there was a question about the Groot app, so it's just to, look up on the App Store, just search for Groot, and then you put in your address, and then it'll tell you what's recycled at your curbside, and there's a little wizard. And it'll even remind you it's garbage night, you know. Oh, there's more? Okay. Any other questions? Will we? Okay, there's a question about the cost to taxpayers for clean energy plan. So, if you look at at trends, coal is becoming more and more expensive, and renewable energy plus battery storage is becoming cheaper. And those trends are expected to continue. And so in most places, renewable energy is cheaper than coal. And it's hard to get the exact data from the two coal plants that we use. But if they are not more economical, or, you know, if renewable energy today is not more economical than those coal plants, which it probably is, it will over time become cheaper. And to operate clean energy is cheaper, so the trend should be in the long run that our energy is cheaper when we have clean energy.
So to add to that, our two coal plants are aging, and that's usually when the uneconomical part of it hits. So as the coal plant gets older, so right now we are in the phase of paying off Prairie State, the bonds for it, because bonds were taken out in order to build it. Then when that ends in 2035, the next phase of it is going to be maintenance. Right now you have to maintain it because now it's starting to get old. And as it gets older, the maintenance becomes more expensive. So in our specific case, by the time this contract ends, the aging and maintenance part will begin. And then we'll have more bonds, which will probably be about the maintenance.
And there's even new EPA regulations that are going to require upgrades to their you know, cleaning up their emissions, which is going to cost money. So
And with,
So ordinance.
with respect to the inexpensiveness or perceived inexpensiveness of burning fossil fuels, nobody stops to take the time to ask the question, why is it free to pollute? Well, it won't be forever. In Canada, they've already adapted a carbon tax, and we're starting to see states, cities move in that direction. Here, nothing tangible yet, but the other, from the interest of a taxpayer, who may complain if they're not informed, why are we giving subsidies to nuclear plants and renewable energy? Well, the world last year subsidized fossil fuel to the amount of $6 trillion. And I think if I was a taxpayer, I'd like some of that money back. Sean Caston had a very interesting comment at the town hall that was conducted with Bill Foster and Professor Bloom of North Central College. And he said that the movement from fossil-based electricity generation to renewable-based is going to be the greatest shift in profits from producers of electricity to consumers of electricity. And try to take that through in your head someday. And it's, that news really has to get out.
Final question, anybody?
Thank you
Thank
very
you
much.
for sitting through all of those. And, yeah, thanks for coming.
Number of years ago, I was a contractor. I can say 1993, it was put on by the carrier. Company. And, it was.
Can you believe I forgot her sign, Bill?
Oh.
It's fabulous.
Right.
Do I need to restore this to the configuration that was laid out?
No, I don't think so.
Cropstone Collaborative.
They're always rearranging it. So Fernando, thanks for
When I hear.
Eco Lab stuff. I have not
What I hear.
had a chance to really look it over, but I'm doing it. Sort of like dumbing down,
It is.
You know, so.
By the way, they do want to.